Hey, tell us the one about the guy in the white mask.
Again? Go, 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 go! High school shooter! On the road! Shot around boys! They need slipping! Running on the rooftop! People he hate! 911 radio! 911 news! So she had heard of this lunatic nearby asylum. She didn't know. Yeah, she didn't know. I mean, she didn't know that he was howling
When Rob Zombie's Halloween was announced, I was extremely optimistic. After the last few chapters, it seemed that this would be a turn away from the easy franchise moves, and Rob was definitely one of us, a horror fan. He obviously has a preference for the 1930s and 40s horror films that are so much a part of my heart, but he also loved 70s exploitation. This seemed like the perfect mix for a Halloween film that would be unconventional but appealing and definitely from the heart. So what the hell happened? Rob Zombie's approach to Halloween is entirely misguided, and I wouldn't have seen that coming. I thought, if anything, he ran the risk of perhaps making the series too classy, too obviously retro. But that's not at all what he did. Rob Zombie's Halloween and its sequel, Halloween 2, which I'm combining in this video into one presentation because ultimately what stops either film from really achieving most anything that it wants to achieve is the same. The same setbacks in both cases make both films just a strange side alley in the Halloween franchise, and one that unfortunately is not just a dead end, but it's not even a pleasant trip. The core of Halloween is this idea that this young child one day who was living an absolutely normal life killed his sister, went catatonic, and had to be put in an institution. Whatever ills in society had affected him, they affected him so incredibly deeply, and there was no going back. Rob Zombie begins Halloween with a scene that's so misplaced for this series, as young Michael is bullied and then kills his bulliers. He's already a psychopath before whatever infection took over. It doesn't have anything to do with Halloween night or the ills of a society. He was just abused at home and abused at school, so he turned that rage outward. Which would be fine if ultimately he wasn't supposed to be the boogeyman. As a portrait of a serial killer, this still is kind of surface level and obvious, but I guess it works for what it is. It's just not Halloween. The film itself is not shot particularly well, with a lot of jagged editing and awkward transitions. Time moves in a very strange fashion throughout this film, and that could have been phantasmagorical, which I think was Zombie's intention, but it doesn't ever come off here, because there's always something shiny on screen, shaking a rattle in your face to make sure you notice it. Whether it is the stunt casting from horror conventions, whether it is goofy performances or obscene dialogue, Rob Zombie feels like he needs to fill every single frame with something big. And if you think back to John Carpenter's Halloween, there is very little big happening in that film until its climax. And even that climax is kind of stealth and cagey. It's not that Star Wars battle on four fronts. It's subtle and intimate and dark and sleek. Any good horror film needs characters that we care about, otherwise they're just red shirts or banana hitchhikers. Here, it seems as you go up the chain from minor characters to our stars, they become more and more unlikable. They're not realistic in a sense. I mean, some people might talk this way, but I've never bothered to meet these people because they're frankly disgusting. And some very credible actors go through the paces trying to make sense of what they should do with this thing. You can see the frustration build. It's not that the film doesn't have a viewpoint or a sensibility to it. It's that everything is misplaced. Everything does not belong. The whole film has an air of both ridiculousness and just plain WTF. It's hard to get behind any of the characters or care if they survive when we know that Zombie can't resist the urge every 12 minutes to give us a woman on all fours scrambling quickly away from Michael as he plunges a knife into her back 7 or 8 or 40 times. It's fairly repetitive, and the plot only really exists for these scenes of brutality. And this isn't simple misogyny. That would be an easy call from a lame critic. What we have here is just a stillness of the imagination. There's only one thing that Michael does, and that's attack women and chase after them when they're crawling away from him on all fours. It's really almost a drinking game. Many would point out that this has the aesthetics of one of Rob Zombie's music videos, and it does to an extent, but is that a positive or a negative? It's kind of both. On one hand, it's nice to see a Halloween film where all the scenes don't look kind of just the same as they did in the previous films, but this is too wide a departure too often, and it's incredibly easy to see how the audience for this thing should have been limited to just hardcore horror fans and gore junkies. It did good business at the box office, at least in its opening week, because people were really drawn to the Halloween title to see what had been done. But this was not the way forward. Halloween 2 adds a level of Lynchian weirdness to the proceedings, and that is appreciated on one hand because at least now we're just completely overloaded on visuals, and we don't have to look at the ridiculously threadbare, illogical, and frankly unglued plot. But even the white horses and the Halloween pumpkin patch marionette dream sequences, it doesn't mean anything. There's nothing to latch on to. And here, the characters are even thinner. Laurie Strode is not Laurie Strode, but she's no one else either. She's just a girl that with a potty mouth who occasionally gets into some trouble with serial killers. It doesn't really make you want to see her survive any more than any other character. And maybe because you like some other work that some of the character actors have done, you vote for them to make it out. But you know they're not going to, because this is a Rob Zombie film. By the ridiculous end where Michael's screaming kill and Laurie has turned into Michael Myers on some esoteric level, you just don't give a crap. And the reason you don't give a crap is this movie is built on nothing. Rob Zombie's concept of Michael Myers was indistinguishable from any number of real-life serial killers. And in that, he misses the point. And he makes Loomis irrelevant. Loomis is not a psychiatrist chasing a mental patient. He is, in a very real sense, a man trying to preserve society. He's trying to stop the evil at the door, the monster beyond the gates. He's the man responsible to turn on the light in the basement. If he doesn't have mythical stature, it's just a guy. And that's what, especially in the second film, Loomis becomes. Just a guy. Yes, it's a subversion of expectations to have Loomis become a scumbag. But since everyone is a scumbag, it doesn't mean anything. Worse, Michael Myers takes on the aesthetic of a hobo. It's kind of laughable, actually. And by the way, why does everyone in these films look like Rob Zombie? Male, female, I think there's dogs that look like Rob Zombie in the movie. Why is that the case? What sort of weird and funhouse mirror world is Rob Zombie trying to make here? Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe I don't get it. And I know these films do have their fans. But the truth is, Rob Zombie missed the point and then doubled down on missing the point. That's not to say there's not things to like about these films. On their own, removed from the Halloween name, I'm sure they're fine. If films I don't necessarily ever want to see again. But they are Halloween films, at least in title and intention and in some aesthetics. So it's okay to expect them to at least operate on a level, that is respectful to the original's identity. It's not to say it has to be the original film again. This is Rob Zombie's film, not John Carpenter. I get that, and I appreciate that. I'm even thankful for that. But to so consistently piss on the grave of a once great franchise is just plain ugly. And I'm not sure exactly who, besides Faces of Death and car crash video fans, this is really intended for. My final word? F*** these movies.